Magnus. I'm the head chef here at the Cruising Yacht Club. And today we're going to do our take on the classic paella that we cook at the moment during lockdown every Saturday from 12 o'clock. We're doing a chicken and a seafood paella. So we're using chicken thigh instead of the breast because it keeps it more moist. The breast can become a bit dry. We're using an Australian chorizo, Spanish style, but it's made in Australia. We got Queensland prawns that I peel them and devein them, but you can also use with the shell on. It gives a little bit more flavor, but I find it easier to eat it when it's peeled. We're using fresh baby squid. We cut them into strips, but you can also cut them into rings. We got brown onions diced up. We got tomatoes. Try and make sure it's a really ripe tomato, because it gives a lot more flavor. Red capsicum. You can use either fresh or roasted capsicum, like we're using here today. Flavoring, we got freshly chopped garlic. We got chili flakes, fresh chopped rosemary, parsley. Paprika. I'm using a mix of sweet paprika and smoked paprika. I find the balance is better that way. We're using also mussels today, which is from South Australia, and green peas. And the rice we're using, which is important, needs to be a paella rice. A risotto rice is not quite right. It gets a bit too stodgy. We're using a bomba rice, which is from Valencia. Not sure if you can get it in the supermarkets, I haven't checked, but I know that the Gourmet Life up on New South Head Road, they sell a variety of that, which is perfect. All right, so let's get started. So ideally you use a paella pan, a flat, large bottom pan. If you haven't got that or can't get that, then a frying pan would go, or a deep pizza pan. Ideally, you'll have the heat source will be the same diameter as the base of the pan. It'll cook more evenly then on the outside and the inside. But mine is a bit small today, so we'll just have to move the pan around. So we want to get it starting to get warm. We're using a olive oil here from New South Wales, from the Alto olive producer. I'm going to spread that around. So it's cooked in stages. We're sealing the chicken first, and then we're going chorizo, and then we're doing the onions, the garlic, and we're adding the stock to the rice, and then it's got to be cooked slowly. So this is, it takes about 45 minutes to an hour to cook this. And that the chicken sticks to the bottom of the pan, it's not a problem. That once the stock goes in, that's going to come up from the bottom of the pan, and it's going to give a more depth to the flavor of the paella, as long as it doesn't burn. So I'd say that's okay with the chicken. We're starting to get those flavors going, so we're going to put that on the side. Heat's still on, and then we're going to go with chorizo. There's a lot of different types of chorizos in Australia, but try and get one that's raw and not too processed. You want the oils to come out of the chorizo, and that helps to flavor the paella. Turn that down a little bit. So that's enough for the chorizo. Take that off. Whoop. Make a mess. All right, now depending on how fat your chorizo is, might need to add a little bit more oil, but we'll see how that goes. So this is, we add the onion now. We might add a little bit more olive oil. When we add our garlic, there's about 3 cloves here. Oh no, it wasn't going in. You have to sweat that off until that starts to get translucent. You can smell the garlic cooking. All right, and then we add our bomba rice. Important to get this all coated in the oils from the chorizo and it starts to absorb the flavor from the chicken and the chorizo. All right. So we are using a house-made chicken stock here. You can obviously use anything, vegetable stock, or even if you have a mussel stock or anything like that, it's fine. Or powdered stock you can make. But what's important is you heat up the stock and make sure that it tastes nice before we add it. We also add the saffron to the stock. We find that works better, so then we'll add that to it. So now we're going to wait for this to come to the boil. Turn up a bit again. So this is coming to the boil now. Then we add our chicken and our chorizo again, make sure all the oils, juices go back in. I mean, it's important that chorizo, the paella, the way to cook it is you cook the rice should be cooked slowly, but it should always be boiling or simmering. It shouldn't be sitting. You should always see movement in the pan. So now we're going to add the chorizo. Oh, sorry, the squid in strips. We add the prawns. And try and out a bit. All right, so we're going to include we'll add the next ingredients. So now we're adding the pimento, the paprika, chili flakes, rosemary, and salt. It takes quite a bit of salt, this dish. We're using sea salt here. And then we're adding the diced peppers, capsicum. I prefer to use red because the green loses its color too much, but that's it's not a must. And then soft tomatoes. And now we're giving it a good stir so it's all mixed up evenly. Because once we've done this, we're not going to stir it anymore because it needs to settle. It's not like a risotto where you keep stirring it to get the starch out. This one should have free-flowing grains of rice. That's why it's particularly important to choose the right rice as well and not use a risotto rice. I read somewhere that if you can't get the proper paella rice, Japanese sushi rice is actually better than using a risotto rice. But try and get the paella rice, Spanish bomba. So that's it. So now we're going to cook this another around 10 minutes. Just monitoring the heat and keep moving the pan if it's not cooking evenly. You can also cover it. I'm going to cook it a little bit longer and then I'm going to cover it for a little while as well. So it helps the mussels to open up properly. But because of the flame, I need to keep moving it around to see where it's boiling. So. I'm going to cover these now to make sure the mussels are getting steamed a bit more. And let it sit for another 10 minutes or so. So we're back. It's almost done, I'd say. It's looking good. There's still a bit of stock there, but it's getting there. What we're going to do now, we're going to put on the peas. I try and leave the peas to the end because purely for color, I'd say. If I mix them in earlier, they just turn grey. So this will warm them up, but it's gives it a bit of a appeal as well. And then the only thing left we have is the parsley, which we're going to add on once we're ready to serve. Stay away from the shadows. So one of the things with proper paella is what they call a soccorat, which is when it starts to catch on the bottom. And some people say that's the best part of the paella. It's a bit tricky to get it right because it's very easy to burn it, and you don't want it black, but you want it to start to catch and caramelize on the bottom. We'll see if we can get that right today, but it's easier in the bigger pan. So this one, the small pan, I haven't cooked many times in this one, so we'll see how it turns out. Okay. Let me try if it's ready. The rice is cooked. Rice is good. So we're gonna turn this up just a little bit. Just a few minutes. And get that sauerkraut, then caramelization going. I think that's it. So now we're going to turn it off, and now we're going to let it sit for about 5 minutes to settle, and then it's ready to be served. So let's get this ready to be served. Sprinkle this with some parsley. That, and I will put some lemons. Traditionally, paella should be eaten from the pan, so you can place it in the middle of the table and eat it from the pan. And it's a great way to present if you have nice seafood. It always looks good on a fresh, saffron scented rice. Seafood is always going to look good. And yeah, let me just check how my crust become. Probably not as good as I'd like. Like it to have been a little more crusty, but it's starting to catch a little bit. So it could have been, probably could have gone a little bit longer, but there you go. Blonde's and my version of seafood, chicken and chorizo paella. Served every Saturday during lockdown from 12 or 12:15 till about 1, then it's normally sold out. So, but do try it at home. Enjoy. Happy cooking.